Chapter 2. The Rise of the English East India Company. In search of sea routes towards the east, several European powers like the French, Dutch, and Portuguese started sea voyages. They naturally became rivals of each other. In this struggle for power, Britain emerged victorious and transformed itself from a trading company to an imperialist nation that ruled India for nearly 200 years. The English East India Company was formed in 1600 with a charter from Queen Elizabeth I, granting the sole right to carry trade in the East.
The Europeans. Indian spices, silk, textile, indigo and saltpetre for making gunpowder were very much in demand in Europe. During the medieval period, Arab traders controlled the strait through sea route. But when conflict and war started between the Turks and the Europeans, this trade was disrupted. In order to get the Indian goods, which were much in demand in Europe, the Western traders decided to find new sea routes to India. The first European traders to discover a new sea route to India were the Portuguese. They were followed by the Dutch, the English, and finally the French. All of them formed trading companies. Their primary aim was to capture the profit-raising markets of Asia. The French too tried to enter the competition for trade in India. They set up their factories in Pondicherry, Puducherry, Madras, Chennai and Chandernagore in Bengal. The French had to confront and compete the British. This resulted in the Carnatic Wars, in which the French were finally defeated.
The Carnatic Wars. For nearly 20 years, from 1744 to 1763, the French and the English fought for the control of the trade and territories of India. Taking advantage of the decline of the Mughal Empire and the political instability in South India, the French and the British fought 3 wars to hold control. These wars are called the Carnatic Wars. First Carnatic War, 1744 to 1748. Second Carnatic War, 1748 to 1754. Third Carnatic War, 1756 to 1763. First Carnatic War, 1744 to 1748. In 1742, a war broke out in Europe between France and England. The war also spread to India, where the British and the French companies clashed with each other. When the war ended in Europe in 1748, it ended in India too. Results. 1. Neither side had made any territorial gains, but the rivalry between the two powers over trade and territory continued. 2. The war exposed the weakness of the rulers of South India. It was shameful that the Nawab of Carnatic had failed to stop a war in his own territory. 3. Dupleix, the governor of the French company, was very capable and far-sighted. He decided to take full advantage of the unstable political condition of South India and increase French political influence in the south. Second Carnatic War, 1748 to 1754. In 1748, when rulers of both Carnatic and Hyderabad died, Dupleix decided to intervene in the wars of succession that had started both in Carnatic and Hyderabad and set up puppet rulers in these two states, who would serve in the interests of the French. Under the able leadership of Robert Clive, a young clerk in the British East India Company, the British managed to defeat the French finally and made Muhammad Ali, the Nawab of Carnatic, their nominee. Results. The French government accepted defeat and signed a peace treaty. They also accepted the British demand that Dupleix must be sent back to France. This was a big blow to the future of the French company in India. The Second Carnatic War boosted the prestige of the British and led to the establishment of British control over Carnatic. Third Carnatic War, 1756 to 1763. The temporary peace between the British and the French companies ended in India when another war broke out between them in Europe.
Finally, the French were defeated in 1760.
The war in India ended with the end of the war in Europe in 1763. Results: 1. The Third Carnatic War shattered French dreams of building their empire in India. Pondicherry and other French settlements were returned to the French, but they could not build forts or station troops in these territories. They could serve only as centers of trade and had to live in India under the protection of the British. 2. The English now established their political influence over Carnatic. Freed of all European rivals, they could now get set for the task of conquering India. The Dutch. The Dutch were the next to reach India in 1595, and the Dutch East India Company was formed after few years. The Dutch started controlling the spice trade in Indonesia. The Dutch also started establishing trading factories in Masulipatam, Calicut and Surat. Later, their chief trading center shifted to Nagapatnam. However, the Dutch dominance collapsed with their defeat in the hands of the English. The Portuguese. The Portuguese were the first to establish political power along the west coast of India. They conquered Goa and made it the center of their commercial and political power in India, which they controlled for nearly 4.5 centuries. Reasons for the success of the British: British naval supremacy, financial stability, capable leadership, freedom from government control and interference. The Conquest of Bengal, the Battle of Palasi, Battle of Buxar.
British naval supremacy. Due to their supremacy over the seas, the British ensured an uninterrupted supply of arms and resources from England. Moreover, their supplies landed directly at the naval base in Mumbai. Financial stability. The British company was financially much stronger than the French. The captivity of the rich and prosperous province of Bengal became an additional source of wealth for the British. Capable leadership. The English were led by capable officers like Robert Clive, whereas the elimination of Dupleix became prime cause of loss for the French.
Freedom from government control and interference. The English East India Company had a trade monopoly and functioned independently. It was free from government control. The French company, on the other hand, was dependent on the French government for loans and financial help. During struggle with the French, the English learned that there is no unity among the Indian rulers and they could easily take advantage of their mutual quarrels to increase their power. The Conquest of Bengal. The Mughal Emperor Farrukh Siyar had permitted the British to trade in Bengal without paying any custom duty. This led to an enormous loss of revenue for the Nawabs of Bengal. The Battle of Palasi, 1757. The clash between the British and the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, began when the Nawab, furious at the British for their gross misuse of power, attacked the English factory at Qasim Bazar, captured the company officials and blocked English ships. Then, the Nawab marched to Calcutta and captured the company's Fort William. The first open war between the British and the Nawab of Bengal took place at Palasi in 1757. In this battle, Siraj-ud-Dowlah was defeated and killed. One of the major causes of this defeat was the treachery within Nawab's army. Mir Zafar, one of the important commanders, had secretly joined hands with the British as they had promised to make him Nawab after crushing Siraj-ud-Dowlah.
Battle of Buxar, 1764.
When Mir Zafar could not meet the ever-growing demands of the company, he was deposed and replaced by Mir Kazim as the Nawab of Bengal. But Mir Kazim refused to be a puppet ruler. In the Battle of
Buxar,
fought between the British and the Mir Kazim, the latter formed an alliance with the Nawab of Awadh, Shauja-ud-Daula, and Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. Their combined army met the British forces at the Battle of
Buxar
in 1764, where the English defeated them. From the Nawab of Bengal, the British got the right of Diwani, or the right to collect the land revenue of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. Expansion of the company's rule in India. The British supremacy was established mainly by two methods: direct and indirect annexation. Conquest of Maesur, Punjab, and Sindh were examples of direct annexation. The British also subdued Marathas through wars. Their war with the Sikhs helped them prove themselves the masters. On the other hand, subsidiary alliance and doctrine of Lapse are examples of indirect annexation. The Conquest of Maesur. Tipu Sultan took up arms with the British when he stopped the export of pepper and cardamom through his ports and stopped permitting the local merchants from trading with the company. To the British, the rulers of Maesur who wanted to assert their independence were to be trampled and crushed. The British fought 4 wars with Maesur respectively in 1767 to 69, 1780 to 84, 1790 to 92, and in 1799. In the first 2 wars, neither side won. But in the third Anglo-Mysore War fought between Tipu Sultan and British, Tipu Sultan was defeated. Finally, in the fourth Anglo-Mysore War, Tipu was defeated and killed, defending his capital Seringapatam to the last. Wars with the Marathas. The British regarded the Marathas as their greatest rivals. The Marathas were divided into different states under different sardars or chiefs belonging to dynasties such as Sindhyas, Holkars, Gaekwads, and Bhosles. These chiefs were united under the leadership of Peshwa, who was the administrative and military head. The British could suppress the Marathas after the 3 Anglo-Maratha War. The main weakness of the Marathas was their political disunity. The British could defeat all the Maratha chiefs. Their territories were reduced to small sizes. After the death of Maharaja Ranjit, there was chaos in Punjab. Punjab was annexed by the British after 2 battles. The First Anglo-Sikh War began in 1845. The Punjab army was forced to concede defeat and to sign the humiliating Treaty of Lahore on 8 March 1846. The British annexed a large part of Punjab territory. The strength of the Punjab army was reduced and a strong British force was stationed at Lahore. Lord Dalhousie grabbed this opportunity to conquer Punjab in 1848. Thus, the last independent state of India was finally taken over by the British. Subsidiary alliance, an indirect method of annexation. Subsidiary alliance was started by Governor-General Lord Wellesley. It was a very clever method developed by the British to expand British territory indirectly. Under this system, the British promised to protect the Indian states by stationing army in the ruler's territory. In return, the Indian states had to make certain payment. If the Indian rulers failed to make the payment, the part of their territory was taken away as penalty.
The Doctrine of Lapse. Under Lord Dalhousie, who was the Governor-General from 1848 to 1856, a new scheme for indirect annexation was devised. This policy was known as Doctrine of Lapse. According to the doctrine, if any Indian ruler died without a male heir, his kingdom would lapse and it would be taken over by the East India Company directly with immediate effect. Right of adoption was denied to the Indian rulers.
Administrative policy of the East India Company. The British administration in India was based on three pillars: civil services, army, and police. Civil services. Lord Cornwallis established the Indian civil services because only well-trained civil servants could take up the challenge of governing the Indian territories. Till 1853, all appointments to the civil services were made by the directors of the East India Company. But after 1853, all the civil servants were recruited through a competitive examination. A special feature of the Indian civil services was that Indians were almost completely excluded from it. All high posts in the administration were held by Englishmen. Army. The second important pillar of the British government in India was the army. The major part of the East India Company's army consisted of Indian soldiers. However, the officers of the army were exclusively British. In fact, no Indian soldier could rise above the rank of a subedar. Police. The third pillar of the British rule was the police formed by Lord Cornwallis. He introduced a system in which a district was divided into a number of thanas, each under a daroga, whose responsibility was to maintain peace and order in his area. The district superintendent of police was the head of the police organization in a district. In the police service also, Indians were excluded from all superior posts.